right, here we are for another HEF podcast. The welcome, if you are new to the HEF podcast. HEF is the Home Education Foundation. That is an organization started by Brenda Dickinson and her husband Craig Dickinson back in the early 90s, after they had fought to secure a victory for parents in the state of Florida. Before 1985, if you wanted to quote-unquote homeschool, you'd have to find some sort of way, loophole through umbrella schools / private schools that would let you do it on your own, get away with it. But there wasn't a codified, spelled out, direct right of every parent in the statute to take their own children and teach them with their own standards and values. And we're very thankful for the work of Brenda Dickinson and her husband and Representative Daniel Webster. And remind me again, Brenda, who the Senator Dick Langley. I'm going to have to write that one down and remember it. Shame on me. And we're very thankful for their work. They worked very, very hard to secure the rights and freedoms of those parents to do that. And that's what the Home Education Foundation's podcast is all about now. So we also want to say thank you to parents of the free state of Florida for the recent fundraiser. I say recent, it was our first ever 2025 August fundraiser, where parents from all over the state pitched in together to pledge money to support what we do in order to try to match a donation by another home education family who had put up $6,000 as a match. And just toward the end of that month, as time was running out, people showed up left, right, and center, and it was a beautiful thing to behold, and we're very thankful to all of those parents who showed their support. We're also thankful to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. We're very excited to have our top sponsors. We appreciate them thoroughly, and we mention them each podcast that we do because they are so important to our mission here. And today, we have back with us yet again, Brenda Dickinson. Welcome, Brenda. Yes, ma'am. I'm always glad to have you with me. Then I don't have to monologue like a Disney villain. I hate doing that. Oh, man. We've got a lot to get through today, and we have, I have to get to the Capitol very, very quickly after this ends, so I'm not in my usual attire, at least for the podcast attire, but I am in my usual attire for the Capitol. So, that's right. It's very funny because someone I was talking to recently, I was at one of the reps' office, and I left a message behind for them, and I said, "It's Jason Crawford." She goes, "I know who you are." She was like, "There's two reasons. One, you always wear black, and two, you send us an email in black." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" She says, "Yeah, come here, I'll show you." So she pulled me behind her desk and showed me the email. And sure enough, I run my phone in dark mode, and so I don't know how this glitch happened, but apparently when I sent the email to her, dark mode took its own glitch and sent the email in black too. So then they were all talking about me behind the scenes as the man in black who sends emails in black. I'm like, okay, there it is. But at least, yes, the writing was indeed in white. Yeah. But at least someone is there walking the Capitol and making our presence known for home educators. So, like you've done, yeah. Hmm. Yes, absolutely. And it's dawned on me several times during this session just how important it is to have someone there with feet on the ground, because some of the moments that have come up have been so physical location serendipity. Like it just your feet had to be in that spot at that time for that to have happened. And yeah, really, really codified in my mind the importance of just being there and being available. So thank you for all the years that your feet were those feet. So I appreciate you thoroughly. Every time I go, I think about you. I appreciate you. So, all right. Well, let's dive into today's legislative update. There have been some recent developments with the Florida State Board of Education. I believe that they have recently reapproved renewed the school choice scholarship funding organization's Step Up for Students, AAA, and they approved a new provider called Sunshine State Kids. So there is now. Oh, they can't hear you, Brenda. I'm sorry. Well, that stinks. I have been monologuing like a Disney villain. Doggone it. Oh, thank you, Mandy.
Microphone says it's turned on.
No, it was me. I had forgotten to do the shifting of the mixer boards. Yep. I'm getting texts now from all the people who watch. They're like, microphone. Thank you, guys. I'm not perfect by any stretch, so this will keep me humble. I won't be pretending. Doggone it.
They missed my pitch about being there in the Capitol and being a voice and how important it is. So I'll repeat that.
Oh, go ahead.
those moments where, in my mind, those are God moments. You know, you're walking through the Capitol and you're not really going anywhere particular, but you're heading somewhere and you run into the person that you need to see. And if you'd gone to the office, you'd had to wait in line to see them. But when you meet them in the hall and you have the opportunity to chat about a particular word in a bill or particular idea in a bill, it's just amazing how often that happens. But that can't happen if you're in Miami.
Yeah.
You have to be in the Capitol.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a representative look up from a conversation that she was in across the hallway and lock eyes with me and kind of abandoned the conversation she was in to kind of come grab me. And maybe she was using me as a way of escape of a conversation she didn't want to be in. I don't know. But there are just some things like that where then you get an elevator ride and you have a chance to chat about some things, and it makes a world of difference. Just being physically there. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brenda, for all the years that you did that. Those were your feet. We're so thankful. Right. So legislative update. Apologize for the microphone. The school board, the state board of education, has renewed the scholarship funding organizations Step Up for Students, SUFS we call them, and AAA, and approved a new one, the Sunshine State Kids. So there is a lot. There's a lot of questions that'll come about because I'm not sure exactly, how many they'll handle or what their funds look like or what they'll be able to do. This maybe is a good time to remind those who are listening the way that FTC PEP functions is different from the way that FESUA functions, and that the scholarship funding organizations, especially in the FTC scholarship sections, are what's the best way to say it? Not on the hook, but they are required to raise their own funds for those scholarship provisions. So when they're asked to or required to provide a certain number of scholarships in the FTC category, they are to go out to the corporations and raise their own Florida tax credit funding for those. And so that's how those function. I have seen some interesting articles and podcasts about the federal tax credit and that will be coming down. And I believe that Step Up for Students sent out some communications on that as well. So if you are interested in learning more about that, check out those sources for that information, because we all have a lot of questions and we're all diving into the weeds on some of these things. So go ahead and take a look at those. If you weren't aware that got sent out, maybe dive back into your emails and make sure you get a close look at those. As far as what to expect legislatively from here, let's go ahead and start with Senate Bill 538 and House Bill 731. These are our big bills that we are focused on extracurriculars. So Representative Abbott in the House and Senator Simon in the Senate are going back and forth with their bill. I do believe that the House's bill made it through its committees and is got to be heard in the House, and then the Senate bill was made it all the way through all of the channels, and so now what they'll do is they'll go back and forth, sending the bill over and back and forth to kind of find the tweaks or make amendments until they land on what the final language is. Essentially, one of them will be laid down and the other one would be picked up, and then they'll amend that one to mirror what the other one is as they communicate back and forth. But all things being said, where those bills both are very close to one another and in a good place. It does. I did get some people who haven't been watching regularly, and they just kind of jumped in at the last minute. We're like, oh my goodness, is this good for us or bad for us? We'll do a total breakdown after the bill is in its final form and it's been finished. We'll kind of do a podcast, at least we'll talk about it on one of our podcasts, where we go through and say what this bill does and what this new law will do so that you'll know. So be looking for that as we approach that. But I will say in general right now, that bill is it is a good bill for us, that it streamlines the school choice options for extracurriculars by kind of creating a single uniform criteria of being eligible for homeschool students or home education students, PEP, charter school, public school, private school students, and it treats them all uniformly. But it keeps the parental empowerment language that was in the original statute, which requires the districts to work with the parents in an agreed upon measure when it comes to assessing the academics. This way, the extracurriculars don't become a cudgel to kind of force homeschooling academics to look a certain way, and they can still work together, and the parent can still have a say. That was critical for us. We fought really hard to get that and kind of kept in, and they agreed with us. So we like all of that. The districts needed a way to finally have spelled out permission that they can assess fees to PEP students whenever it comes to things like the extracurriculars. So they would normally draw down funds from the state budget through the FEFP for home education students in a class that's extracurricular or something like that. And so they needed basically, or they could do it, but they really wanted it spelled out that they could. So that kind of clarity is also in this bill. The bill also does something for coaches, which it allows them to open up the payment options for coaches and reclassify how the coaches are treated as personnel, so that they can negotiate better salaries and we're not losing good coaches to Alabama and Georgia, which I think is so important across the board. And maybe this will create additional opportunities where instead of spending 1,500 hours and only having $3,000 to $6,000 in terms of bonus pay for it, which comes out to a very, very, very small amount of money, they'll actually be able to be paid a formidable amount, or what's the word? A competitive salary, so that you can see better quality kind of come in. And I think that's good. So for our sports bill, that's where we're at, and things are looking good and moving smooth. When it comes to the larger education issues, the House sent over their proposed, what was the bill number? It was like 5001. Oh man, I don't remember the exact bill number. The House has sent over their, General Appropriations Act, HB 5001. And then the Senate took it, replacing it with a blank bill. And so now what they're going to do is lock in and conference negotiating back and forth. That allows them to get the bill in that posture so that they can then start all of the conferencing. It's still open as to whether or not we'll see another 45-day extension on the on
Let's hope
session.
not.
But I mean, we can hope not. I will say that any of the language that has been in bills that have moved and made it around is language that can be in kind of augmented onto those conferences. So we're going to keep a very close eye on things that go in and out. And if you want to follow in on that in more real time, we'll be doing that in our Discord server. That's where we do a lot of our communication when it comes to this stuff, so that it's you can know as a community, in more in a more, help me out, timely manner. There we go. Any questions about that so far, Brenda? I know you haven't had to pound the pavement with me, so we talk about some of the things, but then there's a lot of details that go, through the cracks.
No, you're doing a good job of expressing our concerns and making sure that our rights are protected. Now is the critical time,
Mm-hmm.
because it is really hard to follow what happens in conference.
Yep.
They gray out some areas, pass some of it on to the next level, and it's tricky to follow all of that. So it's important at this stage of the game to have built really good relationships with those decision makers.
Yes.
And I think that's something you've worked really hard on. And so you have many of their cell phone numbers. And if you see something going awry, you can say, hey, remember our language. We need to get this in there. And that's kind of what is so important at the end game here is, who do you know who has the power to get your language in there and protect what you're trying to fight for. And so that's one of the key things that a lobbyist does, is make sure that things get in there that need to be in there that might have dropped through the cracks in the negotiations. So, I would say maybe somebody out in the state could do that, but it would be extremely difficult for them to follow it. And it moves pretty quickly.
It moves fast. Yes. Very fast. Speaking of being in the Capitol, that'll wrap up our legislative update. But of course, I was at the Capitol last week, pulled in every direction. But we also had FPEA Day at the Capitol last week, which is the Florida Parent Educators Association's Day at the Capitol, sponsored by Senator Grohl. And I found it a little odd because I was like, oh man, I know that we do it every year, but I was like, oh man, it landed on the day where all of the senators and representatives are locked in. And I was like, oof, I hope some of them will be able to kind of scoot out of their meetings and come speak. Senator McClain did. He was able to make it, but they had a lot of good speakers and content lined up, and we were actually able, the Home Education Foundation and James Madison Institute has partnered together on a quiz game for students of both young and kind of like older age groups. The questions kind of can be categorized, and we did a quiz game. It was kind of funny because when we tried to get through the front doors of the Capitol with our signs and our boards for the game, they wouldn't let us in. They were like, no, you can't do that. Those signs are too big. You can't come in here with all that. And I was scratching my head like, oh my goodness, what do you mean? Like, we're with the event on the 22nd floor and I see bigger signs all the time. Well, apparently there were a bunch of protesters that have been coming in with signs and or multiple signs and then kind of holding them together and gumming up hallways and things like that. So they had created a rule where your sign had to be yay big. So Bill Maddox, bless his heart, I love him. He went back to his office at the James Madison Institute and reprinted the game board down on a single piece of paper size. And I was laughing because at least we had a visual of the 13 colonies, which was fantastic. But essentially, they answer questions, and there's the 13 colonies. And as they answer questions, those two teams, they move closer and closer and closer and closer to the capital. And the one who gets there first is the winner. And there were lots of great questions. And we had a Benjamin Franklin period actor who was there, and he would wax what's the word, reminiscent. Oh, I knew Jefferson and he was like this, and oh, John Adams, he and I didn't agree on any of this stuff, and he would kind of talk about the chair that he sat in, and all of these really cool factoids that found their way into the game as the kids are playing it, and they're nervous about being put on the spot and answering questions, and then they get them right, and they're like, yay, and then Benjamin Franklin pipes in, and it's a fun experience. It was really great, and I'm excited because the FPEA is working with us to try to get it in the convention somehow, where people can come by and play it. So I'm excited about that as well, and we should also be able to get it into the Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference. They've agreed to host it, and then there's one more that we're still working to try to get it into, but we'll see. I do believe that the James Madison Institute is going to have it available to be packaged where it could be played after this is over, but it's called The Spirit of 76, and it goes back to 1776 and the foundation of America and our forefathers, and there's a bunch of really cool trivia questions, and it's a fun game. But we were able to play that, and we thought we might have to be interrupted by the representatives as they show up, because if they show up, they have 2 or 3 minutes and they've got to get back to session. So we were ready to kind of pause the game and start the game at any moment, and no, we were able to play it fluidly, and the kids had a great time. It was a good experience, so we're very thankful for Bill and the James Madison Institute. Those guys are awesome over there. Yeah. And that was FPEA. There was more, but that was our big part of FPEA Day at the Capitol. And just thank you, Suzanne, and to all of the people at FPEA and Patty Sullivan for doing all the coordinating. It was really, truly wonderful. And Aaron DiPietro was there, and he talked about how a bill becomes a law. And, there were just lots of really good discussions to be had. And there was one more, and I can't remember her name. I remember her name was Sarah, but I can't remember her last name. But she worked on some grassroots campaigns, and was talking about how to get involved and what they can do, and it was really insightful. So overall, it was good. Let's see, and then there was more. I had some interesting discussions with some families that were there. One of them kind of gave me pause because I was kind of scratching my head. Obviously, it centered on the scholarships, right? I think that's still what a lot of people are focused on and curious about. And some even read the tea leaves and think this is doomsday for traditional homeschooling. And I can't say that there are no concerns. Like, that's not something I'm willing to say. That, oh, there's no concerns, don't worry about anything, this is all perfectly fine. I'm never going to say that. That is not our statement at HEF. That is not what we intend to communicate out. So if ever you read something that we put out, please don't read that into it, because that's not our stance. But that conversation prompted me to kind of write something that I was thinking about, and post it up as an article on Facebook. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that with you a little bit, Brenda, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. I was doing some research, and I found I had recently been talking to someone from Team Pact who was also there about how public education is having a hard time pivoting, just in general, whether it's post K-12, universities and colleges, or it's the K-12 education. There's a struggle to pivot. For the last couple of years, the House and the Senate have been trying to run a bill that addresses some of the criteria and standards for math and science and things like that. And there's not. I mean, you know what's happened over the last couple of years where they've been deadlocked with one another, but also, kids get older. You're in ninth grade now; you'll be in 11th, and in 2 years, while they're debating and discussing what's happened, your opportunity to be impacted by what they're discussing has just moved right along like water under a bridge. It just passes on through. And kind of being aware of that and watching that pass as things are debated got me to thinking about how fast AI has changed the face of almost every single industry in the world, basically. I know that when it was first launched, it was like, oh, hey, we can do this and we can do that with some of the stuff that I do in marketing. And it was neat and useful. And I was like, oh, how can we incorporate this? And now it's almost as if it does a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's leaned on heavily. And knowing how to write a good prompt and prepare an AI to do this or that and give it parameters and get it focused to be an assistant or to do the kind of things that you needed to do is in and of itself several courses worth of learning, and then I was reading about how some of the finance in the finance industry and in other industries, there have been massive swaths of employees, 15,000 employees, 20,000 employees from different entities like Citigroup, Amazon, Microsoft, who have just been either rerouted in their jobs due to efficiency cutbacks because AI will do a lot of that, or some that kind of stuff. And so I listened to a young man telling me he was I think he is already in his first year or through his first year and toward his finance degree. And I'm like, well, Citigroup just laid out, like, just kind of restructured. I think it was nearly 20,000 employees. And I'm like, they're getting restructured while you're learning what they do that got them restructured. So I'm like, this isn't fast. This isn't as nimble, as educating a child and getting on their feet should be. And I think it's important in that for parents to realize that all of public education is also an experiment. And the ultimate aim is to get our kids set up for success in life. And you as the parent need to be informed, but you also need to be empowered to be the one making those decisions, period. And it's great to have ideas about what standards should look like. This is how we learn to read. This is how we learn to math. This is how we learn to science. This is things in history that are important we should learn. And it's important to have some standards for that. And public education has their standards, but parents should have their standards. And they should be able to set the bar, set the tone for what those are, and to hold that line. And someone disagreed with me, not in totality, but kind of nitpicked and got interested in, well, the scholarship is pulling away at that, and the standardized testing and scholarship, and just kind of went very, very deep on the scholarship is the problem. And I just can't agree with that. I look at all of that shifting, and I look at the monopoly in public education. And there's no way that an amendment to the Constitution that takes a 60% majority is going to do anything to shake the foundations of that monopoly. Because traditional homeschoolers make up 2% of that population. We don't control that vote. So we're never going to be able to vote that monopoly out. But what can happen is that options can be introduced and money can move over here to the parents' hands and give them access to a whole market of educational options that they can choose from and decide for themselves which ones have the quality product and can produce the quality outcomes they're looking for that set their kids up for success in life. Obviously, where we are is you're the parent. You can do it, and you should be free to do it yourself. And that's that bright line. And I tried to communicate that, and I thought I did okay, but maybe I just don't always get it perfect. But that bright line is where we stand, and we come down on that. Yes, the parent, if you want to educate your own kids, you should always be able to do that. They're yours. They don't belong to anybody else, regardless of what they think their standards are. Your standards are what matter to you and your family, period. And so I think I don't want to be misread. It's not that we're against micro schools, because some people look at that and go, oh, you're against micro schools. I'm like, no, I'm actually for them. I like them. I think they're great. In the marketplace of ideas and a marketplace of options, educationally, there should be a lot of options. There should be so many options that it's hard to find a monopoly. And parents should be able to pick and choose like a buffet. Go to the buffet and yeah, there's some stuff over here and stuff over there, and you might be allergic to that one. Don't eat it. But like go through and pick what works for you. Pick what's going to help you get back out on your feet and get on your day. And I think we're losing some of that when we infight in the community, where, you're not a real homeschooler if you take the scholarship. You're not a real homeschooler if you do this or to do that. I find that sad. I feel like I'm quoting Monty Python. Sir Knight, you make me sad. But there is a moment at which I was like, we should just be able to find at least one voice of unity. You are the parent. You are paramount in the decision making for your own children, period. And this person pushed back and was like, when I hear that, all I hear is be quiet. And I was like, oh, well, that's not what I meant to communicate. The call for unity did not mean to tell you, shut up and stop talking about what you think is a problem. No, in fact, I want those conversations. I want them to come to the forefront, and I want people to be able to see them, because there are people coming from a system that know only the system, and they're looking for another system. And the truth is, you can go your own way and set your own standards, and you can do your own thing. And in that like thrust of pulling people out and kind of seeing the monopoly go and get pieced out to all these different options, I think there's great comfort in watching that happen, because I think it's great. The public schools don't like it, but if people like your product, they'll come back. They will. And if they can shop you, as long as they can shop you and you're an option, they'll come back if they like your product. They may not come back for the whole thing. I don't buy a whole curriculum either. I like to take this class piece of the curriculum over here and then do this thing over there. And that could be the new norm we could be looking at if parents will see it and empower themselves to that, rather than just leaving one system to, in whole, be a part of another system. And I think it's an important takeaway. I've talked a lot, Brenda. What are your wheels turning and saying?
Well, I think that you're right on in saying that parents should be the ones that make the decision. Some parents have to struggle because they can't home educate their children, and they have to find another way to get their children educated and take care of in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. Some parents burn out with home education. They just can't follow through to the end. And so that was one of the reasons. And you have to think back, when we started pushing for home education, there were two options: public, private. Mm-hmm. And there were people that wanted to teach their own children at home. And as you said, they were struggling to find a way, which the court shut down and said umbrella schools are not the way. That is not a, quote, school to have your children in your home and you educate them. That is not a public or private school. So the option was going to be taken away. So creating something new outside of the box was quite a battle in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There was a handful of people that wanted to home educate their children in the way they saw fit to customize the education for each child.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the timing was just right, and we were able to create something different. And then fast forward to 1996, 97, I was part of helping to create the Florida Virtual School. That was really another big, huge step in giving parents choices, because home education families at that time, at the end of 8th grade, were putting their kids back into public school because they were afraid of trying to teach algebra or geometry. And so there were a handful of innovators in Alachua County and Orange County that wanted to try a virtual school. In 1996, there were virtually no families that had computers. It was just a handful. No cell phones, landlines. That was it. But in the midst of all of that, there were some people that wanted to create a new option. We ran into the same thing. Oh, no, it won't work. Virtual education can't educate a child, because we were stuck in a mindset of the way things always had been. So then you fast forward to 1999, and John McCain had a child who had some disabilities, and he wanted to create the John McKay Scholarship for kids with unique abilities. And it was a godsend for parents who were trying to deal with their child with disabilities. All of these things have progressed to give parents more choices. And more choices is better. We're not dictating that you have to do home education. We're not dictating that you can't do public school. But the more options there are on the buffet of education, the better a parent can choose what's best for their child. And I know back when Jeb Bush was the governor, one of the things that he wanted to see was for the money to follow the child. A lot of the people who are complaining about the scholarship would also be the first to take a tax credit. Well, Florida doesn't have an income tax, so there's no way for you to take a credit. So the other option would have been, which is what they did, was to create that scholarship. So basically parents are getting their money back that they paid in taxes for their child's education. And so the leadership in that early 2000s wanted parents to have those options. So there's some fear mongers out there. Oh, this is going to destroy what we know as home education. Well, no, it's not. And the reason is the legislature agreed to create a separate box for attendance. So any kind of regulations that come down are going to apply to the PEP scholarship. They won't apply to the home education families that come in a different option to meet attendance. So you and I agree that there are a few more boxes that ought to be created in the ways to meet attendance. We want to expand that rather than limit it. And when we do that, we insulate our home education option from all the regulations that would come on the other programs.
Yeah.
So I think people don't understand the way the law is created.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a fear.
Yeah. I agree.
But I think that we need to provide parents, because every child is not the same, and parents ought to be able to customize that education for that particular child.
Yeah.
And to, some of them are going to be great mechanics. Well, let's do the career path for them. Um, why do they need geometry and calculus if what they're going to be doing is working on computers with cars and, be good mechanics and make good money?
Right.
Or a hairstylist, cosmetologist. Every child is different with different giftings, and we ought to be able, as parents, to customize that education for that particular child.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it more better myself. It's really interesting, this kind of tug of war between the like I don't know what to call them, homeschool pure traditional purist, maybe, like the homeschool traditions, this purist look of like what that looks like is being threatened. Um, the culture of homeschooling is being threatened by a lot, but I don't know that we all even agree on what that is. A lot of people think like, oh, it's because we'll do the classics and here's what all we want to teach, and it's not a curriculum. It's not a set curriculum though. Like it's not a curriculum approach. Some people sit down at the dinner table and they do schooling, and some people hang upside down on the couch and do math, and some people ride on a horseback and do math
Mhm.
numbers, and some get outside and want to build things, and they suck until you realize numbers and things add up and there's edges and framing, and then they go, oh, and they're opened up to a world of math. And all of these approaches are valid approaches, and if there's a bent that I think is truly the homeschool spirit. So you've got the spirit of 76, the 250th birthday of the United States of America, greatest country on earth. You've got our founding fathers who had no framework, and yet they pioneered something with their own.
Amazing.
Yes, something amazing with their own hands. And God bless him, John Adams couldn't speak French, but he was the one who was going to go negotiate with the French. So what did he do? Read obituaries and learn French from reading obituaries. And this is homeschooling in a nutshell. If there's anything to protect, it's that. The spirit of learning, the spirit of pioneering, the spirit of looking at an obstacle and empowering through it, because you can conquer it. You can figure out a way through it, around it, over it, dismantle it, and use what you dismantled to build something else. Right? That is homeschooling in its purest nutshell. And this is one of the reasons why I don't love standardized tests. I don't like them at all. I was never a good test taker, but it's not that I have a personal vendetta against tests. It's just that I don't think they really measure what truly makes you ready for life. I don't think they do it at all. I think they measure some stuff that some people teach that give them a benchmark for assessing whether or not they think they're successful. But I don't think they really truly set someone up or show them that they're not going to be any good at life. They're not indicative in that way. And that they're a part of PEP. Hey, look, right now it's just a box to check. Right now, your scores don't stop you from getting a renewal. Your scores don't stop you from being able to participate in it. Your scores don't invite anyone in to tell you how to do your job better. Nothing about those scores changes anything about your program right now. And I will fight tooth and nail to keep it that way, because I think that is right. And I think that the moment that becomes onerous and restrictive, or it puts guardrails on forcing PEP education to look like this, so that homeschooling now has to look like this so that it can do well on those tests, I'm out. I'm walking. My feet are hitting the pavement and I'm out. That's it. And I hope that's a big message. I hope that a lot of people will leave when something like that happens. My fear is that it won't. They won't. My fear is that enough people will go into the program from a system and they'll be system minded. That as the system changes what it requires of them, they just say okay and go with it. And that it does steer them and take them in that direction. And that is exactly also why I will fight to make sure home education also stays as free and separate as possible, because I want parents to be able to do their own thing, set their own standards. And, there are things about home education law in Florida I don't like. I want it to be even more free and more left alone. And I get that. But there are also some really cool advantages that we have where we get to participate in things like Bright Futures and dual enrollment and scholarship programs and sports at a public school. And in order to be participating in these things, there's some give and take. So I get that. I just want to make sure that as a home education community, as a homeschool community, we're aware that infighting over the scholarship isn't the threat that's going to come toward parental rights and authority in education. That there are entities in other states, you can see them, they're running bills. If you haven't been seeing them, start Googling it. There are waves of thoughts and ideas in other countries that circulate, and we think parents shouldn't be able to be trusted. You know what? Your kids, you could abuse them. Who knows what you're even doing? Who knows if you're even doing a good job? And we need some oversight on this. And all of that comes from a particular bent and thought that has nothing to do with the scholarship. And we are a small part of the population. If they wanted to twist the arm, they didn't have to play the long game of going through the scholarship to bait everyone onto it to do it. They would just vote it out. And we have to be very careful and clear about what the real battlefield is in the fight for our rights, and not get focused on infighting with each other, because we need that unity of voice, and we need that one single banner under which we stand that says, I am the parent, I am enough, and I will make the decisions for my child, period. Brenda?
And I want to add right here that in order to protect those rights, you need to get involved in elections and elect people who support parental rights.
Yes.
And you can see there's such a small majority in Washington of those people
Yep.
that want to protect your rights and those people that want to control every aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So getting involved in elections, both national elections, federal elections, and state elections, is incredibly important.
Yes.
Interview those candidates, find out what they believe and what they're going to support, and pick the candidate that you think is going to protect your rights in the best possible way. And get your kids out there involved in the elections, because they can earn Bright Futures, volunteer hour credit. They can learn about government in a way that they would never learn just studying it from a book. And my method of education was activities and engagement. And my children, when they were in the 4th and 5th grade, worked in legislators' offices. They got to see firsthand how things worked. And I think that's the best way to have kids learn, is to do something and to be involved. And so I can't emphasize enough about getting involved. You might want to share some of the things that Sarah shared. Was it Sarah Clements?
I can't remember her last name. Brenda, you're going to embarrass me further.
Okay. Well, Sarah, whoever Sarah is, I'm sure she had some important tips that
she did. They were great.
Parents.
Yeah. They were great. She borrowed some that she had gotten from Representative Daniel Webster as well. So, but you said something that made me think of something else that I want to touch on, because we do have to go. I have to go soon. That it's not enough to be Republican or Democrat. It's not enough to be focused on the red or the blue or the MAGA at the end of the day, it's about parental rights. And you need to be interviewing the candidates with that focal point in mind. You're absolutely right with what you said, that if there's something that does need to be in plain view, it needs to be that. When home education was put into law in Florida, it was done so in a Democrat-controlled legislature. And it is not a partisan issue. It is a parental rights issue. It is a philosophical issue. It is an ideological issue. But it's not a political one. It isn't. And it doesn't follow one color of the aisle or the other, or one side of the aisle or the other. It is just parental rights, whether it's in the scholarship or not, or whether it's to be left alone. Or if you're in public school and you see, if you're a home education family and you show up to a school board meeting and you see someone in public school who's talking about parental rights, you should get their contact information and talk with them and stand together on parental rights. That is so important. Even if you exercise yours by walking over here and being home education to be left alone, you're still fighting under the same banner, which is that you are the parent, you have the authority, the choice is yours, and they're your children, period. Brenda? Close us out for the day. Wrap it up for us.
Get involved. Criticism is not helpful if you don't put your feet to doing something about it. And I just believe that it's easy to criticize. It's more difficult to change. And, we've got to put feet to what we believe. So get out there, get involved, talk to people. And when your school board says parents can't get involved in the classroom, go talk to those school board members and elect somebody who believes parents have a right in the public schools. So
Absolutely.
You've got to make the change. Criticism doesn't help make a change.
There we go. Well, thank you for being with us today. And this discussion primarily was prompted out of something that went into our Discord. And oddly enough, the app is called Discord, but I found a lot of unity in our Discord because I'm listening to or watching these kind of conversation go back and forth in such a civil manner. People disagreeing with each other principally, and yet it's polite and cordial. They're able to do so and still maintain respect for one another. And man, I love that. I absolutely love that. If you're not that you want to be in our Discord necessarily doing all the arguing, but if you want to come and see what it's all about, there's a huge community there of people you can interact with. If you're new to homeschooling and you want help, or you want to connect with people who have been around that for a while and can help you, by all means, that's a great place to find those mentors and find those people. If you're young and you like debate, there is a debate club for the youth and the students, and we're hoping to really get that going a little bit more soon. We had Abe Lopez from the FDI, the Florida Debate Initiative, that was on recently. So we're looking for ways to collaborate. That's in there. You'll find that as well. And there's so much more, and as well as our legislative updates. So if you haven't been to our Discord yet, get in, join it. It's free. There is no cost. We are supported by those who believe in the work that we do and show us their support. And since that's what's next, I'll go ahead and say thank you to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metal, and TBHC Group. And thank you to the parents of the free state of Florida for our recent fundraiser. And since there isn't anything else and I have to get to the Capitol, without further ado, here is your Monday back.